questions, Beth.
Okay.
How about the first one?
Okay. When I have a this is from Tonja. When I have a music supervisor project for a brand, I would say 80% is the song rights and legal stuff, and 20% devoted to listening music. How much of your time is devoted to discovering and listening to new music for film or TV, and how much is dealing with song rights and all the legal process?
Right. So personally for me right now, because I'm publishing administrator for Red One, that is one of my main jobs. I'm also doing other things, but I will say that the song rights and legal side is really my focus. I think I said that last week when I told you guys a little about my background. I am a musician. I'm a songwriter. I love to try out composing and for different things, instrumental stuff, but I don't always have time to do that. So, but on the side of for my company and different things that we do, one thing I was thinking about with this question is I really enjoy listening to you guys. You're a small group, and I do enjoy going and listening to the music because that's really how it all kind of started. First being a musician and then trying to help musicians and with the productions and all of that kind of stuff. So I have really enjoyed that with just this group of people. So thank you for allowing me to give feedback and come in and listen. And Beth, what would you say when we started Take Two? You were listening to
I
a
was
lot of
listening
music.
to a lot of music, and it got to the point that I was just basically I was at the beach one time on vacation, just listening to music, and I just wanted to throw myself in the ocean because, you love music, and then when it becomes your job, we all try to make music as a career also continue to be fun and not the job thing. So, but when you're doing this kind of thing, there is the tasks of it and the descriptions and the, putting it in your database and everything. And it gets and I like that kind of thing. Again,
She's the organized one.
I'm the one that loves an Excel spreadsheet, and it got to me. But we had one songwriter who had 400 songs that went from the 60s, 70s style right up through punk rock. He could literally do just about everything. And so it did keep it interesting, but it was exhausting. So it's one of those things where I feel like you need to balance it when you get in that mode of it just feels like you're at a desk job. Stop, go back to the creative, so you don't lose the creative. I know for musicians, it's the one thing you guys always say is it's impossible to do the business and then turn around and be creative. So I understand that's not easy to do, but I would encourage you to just try to kind of keep touching base with the creative when you find yourself doing a lot of the detail work, because it can suck you down, and
that's good.
And then you want to stop.
Right. And once again, when we started Take Two Productions, that was our main reason. I do want to say the songwriter with 400 songs, he wrote those from the late 70s all the way up until now. He's very prolific and he's an artist and he's been doing this a long time. So we started this because we did have friends like that who needed some help getting their songs out into the world. And so that was really the passion behind Take Two Productions. So Beth, should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, next one. Are you able to, this is for Dawn, I'm sure, are you able to experience music and film TV without thinking about the soundtrack or the score? Or do you always think about stuff like that? This song does not fit.
Big, I cannot watch TV or film without thinking about music. You guys are all probably this way too. I was gonna say my son and I have an AMC pass where we go to movies, and the best thing about that pass is that I can go see a movie, and if I'm distracted by the music, I can go again or again. I can see it 3 or 4 times. And so I loved my AMC pass because him and I love music and film. So we go to all these films. We watch all through the credits. We like to see who the soups are, and we really do our research there. So, but even television, watching it, I'll hear it from the other room and I hear a song and I have to run in and see, what my mom is watching or something, because I want to know what show is that. And then sometimes I've gotten to the point where sometimes I know who the soup is just by hearing.
Just by listening.
Right. And so that has been a fun process for me, but I don't enjoy that sometimes I can't enjoy shows.
Well,
So
I think one of the things is when you have a really good music soup that gets the music right, it's either twofold. One, you notice it and it just adds to the vehicle of the
Experience.
visual, right? Or you don't notice it at all. And when you work in music and film and you leave a movie and you don't, and you're like, nothing jumped out at me, because I literally screamed one time in the theater with my kid. My kids hate to go to movies with me because I screamed, "Come on!" And they looked at me like, "Shut up, mom," because it was just so awful. So I have to like tamp myself down. But when you leave the theater and you go, man, I didn't I really enjoyed that. You feel the emotion, but you didn't notice anything particular. That's a gift. That's a really gifted composer and music student.
it is.
In my opinion.
It is. That's true. I love those too. Yeah.
They're rare though. Okay,
Yes.
Dawn, how do you name your playlist? Do you have, for example, a playlist called Songs for a Dark Scene or Songs for Tension?
Okay, there's two ways that I do this. A lot of times when I was at ABC Television, I would be working for specific shows, and producers would send us a few scenes, or they'd say, I have this. Some things we would work on would be like a 2020, and they would tell us everything that was going on and they wouldn't always say exactly where they needed music. Sometimes they'd just send us the script. So I would know, and many times they didn't give you notes. So you just have to say, okay, this is kind of a dark, time in this scene where they're going through something that's happening, and then it gets lighter. So I would name them based on what the script was saying. That's kind of a different thing. But if you're ever pitching to soups, you need to make sure that if they send you a brief, or you see something on their Twitter, or I'm working on this song, that you want to send them keywords that they've mentioned in your playlist, because that will be very helpful for them to go back and go, oh, this is what I asked for. I'm going to go see. Now also make sure that you are very very sure that that is what they wanted, and don't try to go, well, I hear this in this part of this cue, but not in this part. So if that was me, I would only send them that portion of the cue, or tell them specifically, go to 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and there you're going to find this part.
Which brings me to the question on the side, Dawn. Can you read that?
Yeah, let me go look at it. Yes. And these are the things I'm going to get to today, because I worked for an in-house music library, and we definitely did all these things. Her question is, I had a question about music libraries. How do they listen for music to add to their library? Melody, lyrics, title, or track feel? It's never the title. I mean, if you send us a title, yes, we're going to, that's going to be, go ahead, Beth.
When I was working at ABC, that was one of the hardest things for them, because you don't want to title something that sends somebody in a direction that's not, you don't want to influence them too much based on what the title is. So it's hard. And you have to also think about what you can register that's not going to be lost in the, with the PROs and things.
Let me give a shout out to Iz right now. Iz, I was listening to some of your music, and hi, one is titled Early Morning, or, see, I can't even remember the title.
Let me look. Morning.
I know. It was Morning something, and so I immediately knew, okay, I hope I'm really going to hear this, and I did.
First Light.
First Light, there you go. It wasn't even about morning, was it? But that's where my brain went. And so I started listening, and I felt I wanted to know, am I going to feel what I see in that title? So titles for you, just let me say, are very important. Many times at our library, we would title them ourselves, but I'm going to get into this later. We hired people to write for us, and we owned the publishing, but then they would get all of their writers. And this is because it was a specific library where you were sure that you were going to get played. So you knew you were going to get royalties. So these songwriters all knew, and composers, they're going to make some money because we're writing specifically for producers that are asking for this. And then we would help them produce it, make sure that it was all correct, and then forward it on the producer. And I'll tell you, 8 times out of 10, it would get used. So many times we would retitle that to put it in our library because we are now the publisher and we want that to be a title that will help us. So I only talked about title. Let me see, melody, lyrics, yes.
Keywords, Dawn. Moods, genre.
Right.
That's that.
Right. Is that what I was going into next?
Yeah, go into that a little bit about what if they're gonna, send something to a music soup, what kind of
right, because that was what I was going to answer about the playlist. Keywords are so important. I would give sometimes even in the title, I would try to give keywords that would help describe the cue. But then in metadata, obviously, dark, acoustic, sparse, moody. Those all would be things that would send somebody directly to, okay, I know I have a scene that is this way. And so we definitely had a system. It's really nice to get a system. You can find, Google is your friend. I did want to tell you all, I came up in the world without Google and it was a much harder place to be. You have the world at your disposal. You can go find people who will give you lists of keywords that they use, lists of genres and, just moods and different things. Or you can just go to one of the big libraries, APM, 5 Alarm Music, different ones like this, and you can go in there and you can look at what they're doing. And it's very easy for you to compare. Did that answer a question, Beth?
Yes, I think so.
I want to make sure I stay on.
May I add to that on the keywords, since that is the space I operate in from a marketing standpoint. Yes. When it comes to the search engine optimization, I think that's what you're speaking about when you're talking about keywords. There are apps, if you're working within a browser like Google Chrome or Firefox, that you can add on, and they will help you with those keywords. And 2 that come to mind, one is called Keywords Everywhere, easy to add on. And the other one is called SEO Minions. You can actually add that on, or you can even go to YouTube and check that out first to see how they work, because they are very similar and they are great at suggesting keywords for you.
Awesome. Tonja, can you put those in the chat?
Certainly.
I would appreciate that so people can grab those if they want. And I want to say I was in a Zoom. I've been in too many lately. I'm learning a lot. Are you guys?
Lots of Zooms.
I know there's so much technology going and new things happening and new companies coming up. I was in a Zoom and I can't remember it now, but I will find it. Somebody email me and say, please send us this. It's on their app. They have a place where you can go put in your YouTube channel or your YouTube song, and that app will give you keywords and genres based on what they have in their system. And I was like, whoa, this is like
based off of what they hear,
based off of what that app is.
It's comparing it to other stuff, right?
Comparing it, yes.
Wow. Humans
Yes.
are just irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
Programmers.
Yep.
Right. AI is a big thing in our industry right now. So, but that was a free service on their front page.
Wow.
So I know you guys all want to know what it is. I have to go find it in my notes and I don't have it right now. So I'll follow up with this Zoom call and I will make sure I put that one in. Somebody hold me to that. Okay. I want to keep moving. Let's see. It's 12:52. Beth, what?
Yeah. Platforms like Netflix often drop an entire season at once. Does this change the speed of their projects?
Yes. Yes. The only reference that I have to this, because I haven't worked at Netflix specifically, we could probably find some music soups who could tell us a lot about this. I did work on a show at ABC television. Disney owned us, so we had lots of cable channels and people that would sometimes, and I believe this one might have been Disney Kids or one of those, and they wanted all of the music playlists for all of the shows that they were producing. They wanted it all at once. So we had to work on that project in that way. It was a long process to organize that and get everything together, but it was pretty amazing process. And I was like, good on you guys for asking for this, because most people don't, and they're putting in music at the end. So they were ahead of the ball and asking us, to provide them with playlists for each episode ahead of time, so that when they went to do these, they could just plug in the music. And they pretty much used all of our music from our library for that. And, that was a good thing for our composers and our songwriters as well. So,
John, follow-up question. Based on your experience, both at ABC and with shopping to music soups.
Yes.
How often, what are they usually like, or does it differ as far as, are they always behind the 8 ball when it comes to music? Is it the last minute thing? Speak to that.
Yes.
Because there's the get your music to editors portion of this, because sometimes they leave things in because they run out of time. So
right.
Befriend editors.
Beth and I have talked about this a lot. We do know some personally, but we haven't ever really utilized that contact. But if you know some editors that would like to temp your music in, or make relationships with editors, even for big shows, they're moving fast sometimes, and they'll just put temp in. Many times temp music gets used and it stays there. So if you can make friends with
the producers and the directors, they get used to it sometimes.
Yeah, and they get used to it. And obviously we go into a lot of other things there. You have to make sure your music is all pre-cleared and ready to go, because you don't want to make a mistake where they come after you they ask you for something and then you go, oh, let me check on that. That is never something to say back to a music supervisor. You say, I'll get back to you with that signed contract. And when we were working with Take Two Productions, One Tree Hill was a big show that used us a lot. And they loved working with me, because I literally had my phone with me 24/7. If I got an email from them, within 10 minutes, I got back to her. The music supervisor was Lindsay Wolfington, and she knew by the end of the day, the contract was signed, it was ready to go, and they could put that in there. And she loved a couple of our artists a lot. So I could even, send her new music from them if she needed. So that was just a service that I was giving her that she got used to. And so she continued to use music. Did I answer that question, Beth?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to ask. Okay. Okay. The last question was, Beth, because I wanted you to speak to this. This was a different type of project that we had going because of the band I was in the 80s and different things that we've done over the years. We were working on a DVD project that we never were able to release, and mostly it was because of the cost of the project. But
we did a reunion show for 5 bands from the 80s. We did that show in 2005, and we filmed it. And we went on to try to do release the DVD. It was it 55 songs, Dawn?
I believe so.
It was 55 songs. So these were, by the time we went to try to do the DVD, it was 30 years on. So the record company, one of them had gone bankrupt. A couple of them had, just disappeared. One of them disappeared, and we weren't sure where the music was. So we had to utilize, digging through a lot of our sources in the music industry in both Nashville and LA to find out where these were. And then the good thing about that situation was, there were 10 songs per band, and most of those would be on the same label. And I think 3 of the bands were actually on the same label. So that was kind of a mass, we need clearance for 25 songs. Can we get it for this price and get the clearance, in advance and get the clearance and all that. So that worked out well. That was a huge project though. Even though we were getting those massive clearances, it was a huge project because we were dealing with so many songs and so many songwriters, because these bands had lots of people coming through them and lots of labels and producers that had co-written and things. So That was the biggest thing we ever worked with.
Right. And one thing I wanted to say about that, a lot of those bands were signed bands. They were with record labels. So in one sense, it was easy to go, because I wanted to say that these bigger record labels and publishers have everything in place. They have forms on their website. You just go get the form, you sign, you tell them what you want. Within a week or two, you'll have an email back, those kinds of things. It's harder with the indie bands, the independent bands, the smaller bands, those kinds of things. Many times it's harder to, and that is why so many soups want sync agents to know that these bands are clear, because they don't want to be, they want
to time to wait.
Pardon?
They don't have time to wait.
They don't have time to wait. They want to use all of this independent music, but they want to make sure that it's all pre-cleared, and nobody's going to come back and say, hey, I didn't clear with that. Shoot, I don't think I admitted Adam, and I feel so bad. Maybe he went out and came back. Okay. Sorry. He went out and came back. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear as well. And so now that we're almost to 1, we're through with Tonja's questions. We did that very well and quickly. Those were good questions. Thank you, Tonja. I'm going to focus in so much. Pardon? You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm going to focus more on music libraries, unless there's more questions about this.
I just want to address the one from Kayla. Speaking of contracts, can I double check what you need? Songwriter splits, master splits, producer releases to allow use on tracks. When we record something with an artist, we get releases from everyone, including every musician that works on it. And we have producers that go, you don't need that. They don't care. I don't care if they care. I want to have the release so that I can double check everything in advance. And if I go to, a music soup, it doesn't matter that the cello player is in, whatever band he was in, because he's, signed a release and I've got that in my possession. So I would get all of those straight up front day one.
Right. And since Kalia asked the question, I'm going to give a shout out to you because I did listen to your song you sent me on disco, and then I went in and looked at the others, but you have everything right there that says, if it's the producer, you signed to work for hire, you have all of that info right there. And that is very, very valuable for someone listening to your song. You've already told them before they even ask. And, you may need a sync agent to help you get the in, but you've already done part of the work. And that was actually something I was going to talk about in my talk about music libraries, and then as opposed to sync agents, because as a sync, I think I'll just say that now, as a sync agent, that Beth and I have done this, over the years, I enjoy the sync agent part because I enjoy, as you can tell, working with people. I enjoy someone like Kalia coming to me and saying, hey, I saw this show, here's the music soup. I think this would be a great place for my music. I've heard all of this, and I think you should check this out. So that helps me as a sync agent, you doing your homework, knowing that, this is where I feel my music would fit. And so I don't necessarily have to go do all of that work for you, but yet we're collaborating and we're figuring out where the best place for you might be. So that's what I enjoy about shopping out music for artists, is that I like that collaboration sort of deal. In a music library, you're not gonna get that that collaboration. So more specialized, smaller. Take Two Productions is very small. We're more targeted towards certain music soups that we know, not that we can't, reach out to others, because as a sync agent, once they know that you're working in the industry, they're gonna send you the briefs and they're gonna work with you. So, but Beth and I, when we started, we were more targeted with certain ones that were utilizing the artists that we had in our small publishing company. So
boutique company.
Pardon? Boutique, I guess that's what you would call it. Yes. So
that was your point too, Don. The large ones, the mid-level, the.
Oh, right. Okay. So with libraries, we might as well get into that. There are, as you all know, I'm sure you know, there are large libraries, thousands and thousands of cues. These ABC television uses these, even though we had our in-house music library. Promos use these. They have relationships with these big, large music libraries, and they're all excellent. All, songwriter, composer can easily get lost in these. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be in there. If you once again, network with these people. If you find somebody in there that is, wants to be proactive about your music and your songs, that's good. But even in my experience with that, I know composers who've had many albums in these libraries, and they do get some placements, but it's large. You're in a large group of people. So then you have the mid-level where you'll get a little more attention. I mentioned later, I don't know anybody here. I don't know anything about them, but as I've perused some of the new libraries coming out, Marmoset Music is in Portland, Oregon, and when I look at their website, I like everything they're doing. I like everything they're saying. And I don't even know how large they are, but that is one that you could go to and check them out. Send them. They have a place right there where you can go in and tell them about yourself and send some links. So I like those mid-level a bit more because they seem, they just seem to be geared toward the independent composer or artist. And then lastly, the small, targeted with specific sizes. And I would say this would be us if we were technically a library, but Beth and I with Take Two Productions are not a library because we don't own your music. We're more on the sync agent side. So, and then you have stock libraries, and I know some about these. Bill, you were the one who sent us that you have been working with Audio Sparks. Oh, he's muted. How do I unmute everybody, please?
I muted myself because my wife.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank you. How long have you been with Audio Sparks?
5 or 6 years.
Okay.
More like 6 years now. I've got about.
How has that been for you?
Well, not as good as far as placements go, but they hired me to primarily, they put my songs on their sister Radio Sparks, which is a streaming thing. So my music's going out to elevators, in stores, that sort of thing. And I make a little bit off it, but not that much,
Okay.
Not enough to quit my day job.
Yes. Now, I'm sorry, Bill, I don't want to depress you at all, but I'm going to have Beth talk to the contract that we saw on Audio Sparks.
Some of it scared me a little bit.
just to do a song, just to put a song in your catalog, the metadata they require is huge. I mean, you have to practically write a book about the song. Oh yeah, it's intense. And it goes through several pages.
They're making you do most of the work.
They're making you do most of the work.
Yeah,
they're basically a giant fishing net, is what, from reading their contract, that's what I've come to. That's my opinion and conclusion.
I kind of felt that too.
Yeah. So they're basically trying to get as much music in there as possible, and their fees and everything come off the top. So anything that they do for you comes off the top before they pay you. So that's not a happy thing because they're only paying you 40% and they're keeping 60%. But before that, if they've done any marketing or anything for you, then it's already diluted the pool.
Because that's in the contract, they can legally take those costs out.
The biggest concern to me was the fact that you can never, under any circumstances, remove your music.
Yeah, that kind of is weird.
That to me, when I see that, I'm out. So if any artist ever gives me anything and it's like in perpetuity with no, in perpetuity, if both sides have the option, of leaving, if one of them decides to, that's fine. But that's not what this contract said. This contract basically says that you can never, after 10 days, you have a 10-day grace period. And then after that, you can never remove your music. it is not,
I didn't sign exclusive. They have the option where you can go exclusive. I did not do that.
Right, but here's the problem you've run into. So you're non-exclusive with them. You've given them, say you give them 10 songs. If you find that there's somebody else in another music library or a soup that you play one of those songs for, and they want to go push that song, a lot of, especially say you hit the mother lode and somebody wants to use it in a movie, they are not going to want to use it in that movie if they don't have an exclusive on it at that point. So you've just shut the doors on some of the things. If somebody finds a song and they want to re-record it, if it's already up on a place where, everybody can re-record everything, obviously, but if it's something that they can't control and they don't get the publishing for because it's already, put up there, you just closed yourself off to a lot of options, because a lot of other music libraries and other soups, once they see that you can't extricate yourself from that situation, and it's going to be playing in elevators and their sub distributors, whenever they get to all of our sub distributors and all of our I was not surprised when you said that there was a radio station, because the contract that I read for the audio Sparks led me to believe that that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to get a lot of people to give them music for free that they don't have to pay much out on. They don't have to pay anything up front, so that they can then package these and put them out to elevators, to grocery stores, to whatever, very cheaply, and pay you pennies. And they're making a lot of money because they have administrative costs that they're taking off the top. So it's a situation where you cannot now extricate yourself from it, and all of the chips fall on their side of the table, basically. So you have to be very careful with contracts, that there's not some way out, that there's anything that Take-Two does. We represent musicians because we're advocates for musicians, and we want musicians to be able, if they find something better, we want them to get out. So normally what we would do is say, we don't have an exclusive license, or sometimes we would for a few years, but if somebody wants out after a certain term, and our terms were 2 years, usually within, then adding onto that. After that term is done, if we're in the middle of negotiation with a TV show for a song and that term ends, we still have the right to continue negotiations for that show we've already started working on, if somebody pulls their music. But other than that, people can pull their music if they get a different offer, if we're not performing for them. That's one of the things we wanted to put in there to say, hey, if you sign with us and we don't perform for you, you're not stuck with us. So that's how you can kind of judge if somebody's honestly.
Yeah.
With Audio Sparks, I still maintain the rights. I retain all the rights to my song. I have that.
Right.
So if I wanted to do it, say we did a license deal outside of Audio Sparks, that would be okay, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, it would be perfectly fine. My hesitation is that the other company that you're going to license with will want to know where else this song is, who else is shopping it, and they may not want to deal with that if somebody else is able to,
right.
So it's just it kind of paint you in a little bit of a corner.
Right. Non-exclusive and exclusive can get very crazy because, there's just a lot of debate back and forth about those things, but those are some of the reasons Beth was mentioning it. And
forever
and Bill,
cannot be terminated is the big to me.
Beth is very good at reading contracts and will always give you some of the bad news. And I will give you some good news, Bill. And we work with a lot of songwriters who are just continuous songwriters. We've worked with writers who have sold all of their publishing, as I just mentioned, to someone like ABC Television. However, we knew that songwriter can write 10 more. Mm-hmm. So if this license is working for you and it's making you money,
right? If you're
then by all means, sell your publishing for those 5 songs that they want to buy from you, and they're going to go make you royalties. We have songwriters who have quit their day jobs because of their royalties. So television pays well. So I'm just saying, and those are very specialized situations where you come across a library who does want to buy your publishing, but also will say, hey, I've got these shows that want to play you. So obviously that's a very specialized place, but I'm just giving you an example. And Bill, you know, you're a working musician who's been doing it for a long time. So I know that you can continue to write more content.
Yeah. And if, again, like Don said, if it's working for you, and that's the thing that's making you money, and you're, you know, then,
you know, the Audio Sparks thing isn't making me get, you know, it's like you said,
okay.
pennies.
Yeah.
Pennies.
Right.
All right.
So thank you for sending that question, because I didn't know much about them, but we do now. So
contract.
My other one is Song Trader. So I'm a Song Trader too. Would you call that a library?
No.
What would you call it?
Would anyone else on board? Is anyone in Song Trader and working in there and doing, would someone like to speak to that? Do you have any?
Katie, she's muted, Don. Oh, or Will.
So I was with Song Trader for a while. I wouldn't call them a library. It's more of a self-service sort of thing, because you're kind of pitching yourself. And I would assume that a library would be pitching and administering for you. Yeah. So it's kind of like a self-service platform. I never really had much luck with them. And I removed my catalog because I actually signed an admin deal earlier this year, which is still a new thing, but I'm optimistic about it. I think.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think if you can, an admin deal is really the way to go. The percentages are much more reasonable. And
what is it exactly?
What's an admin deal?
It's basically, it's similar to a publishing deal, with the exception that they administer your publishing technically, and so they take a smaller percentage as opposed to actually buying out your publishing. So you retain ownership of 100% of your publishing. They just have the rights to administer it and exploit it based on like your contract with them. And because of that, if, for example, things don't work out in your first 2-year term, there's no, like, you don't have to worry about a sunset clause. Like, once you get out of your contract, your publishing comes directly back to you. And then also the nice thing is, from the artist perspective, the percentages tend to be, you know, 15 to 30% as opposed to like 50-50 or worse for a co-pub. And if you find like a pub administrator who, like a publisher who does admin deals exclusively, who has a good creative team as well, so they're actively pitching. Like, a lot of admins don't pitch, but if you find a publishing administrator who also pitches your stuff for sync, it can be a really positive thing. I mean, you can of course still pitch your own stuff as well. I think they would encourage that, but having somebody else doing it is amazing.
Yeah. Will, thanks for sharing that. Can you explain how did you find that? Did you just, how did that happen for you?
So at the time I was working with a manager on kind of like a monthly retainer basis. And this was a really great contact through that relationship.
Awesome.
And honestly, I talked to them and kind of like tried to get to know them for probably about like 9-ish months before we even got to looking at paperwork, because I don't know, I've rushed into things like that in the past and kind of gotten stuck in deals for multiple years where like my catalog just sat on the shelf. And at this point with my artist project, I have, you know, close to 50 songs. So it's a pretty deep catalog for somebody to just dive into. And I wanted to make sure that like their head of creative over there, that number one, she and I could communicate well and just like hang out and grab a beer, because that's important. Mm-hmm. And also that she was a fan of the music and was willing to spend time with the catalog and was willing to talk strategy with me about where we mutually thought it lived in the world of sync. And I kind of approached that one like by asking her that question, because I didn't want to color her answer with any of my own assumptions. So her answer overlapped mine about 80%, and then she brought more ideas to the table. So that was really kind of like the turning point where I was like, this is starting to feel like a good fit.
Wow. Will has a lot to offer.
Oh.
Well, what's your genre, primary music genre?
So my artist project is called Ships Have Sailed, and it's like an indie alternative pop project with a very kind of like silver lining type of philosophy behind music. So even when we like lean darker, I try to find like a little bit of light in there. But it has a pretty broad range, everything from kind of like gritty Killers-esque rock to like electropop, really. Yeah.
I would hope they might be able to get you something in commercials or ads soon.
I would hope so too.
With what you just described, because that is, as some of us have been in some Zooms, that's kind of what they're looking for right now. There's some things going on in the world, but we need a little hope. We need a little something to make us feel good. So that's very wise. I like your answers, Will. Thank you.
Thank you. It took me a while to build up the patience to do that. You know,
right.
It's like I've learned that patience really is like, if there's one thing that you can cultivate in your personality, it's like to be patient, because this is a long game, you know?
It is a long game. That's one thing I was going to talk about today is I think there's a lot of things, but having a good strategy. And as Will was saying, he decided, he's jumped in before, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to see if this is going to work for me, if there's a good relationship. Those are things you learn as you've been doing this a while. And, you know, you just don't want to jump into everything if it doesn't feel like a good fit for you. But then the persistence and the patience, I think, and the artists that end up doing this and making it, and despite what we all call making it, being able to continue doing music in whatever way, you know, the avenues that you find that will help you keep going. All of those things, patience, persistence, and your strategy are very important. So, and as Beth said earlier, once again, when we started Take Two, sometimes we feel almost sorry for the creative musicians because some of them can't get into the business side and doing all of this, and it kind of brings them down, and it takes away from the creative side. So partnering with someone, as Will said, he had a management person who was helping him, and, you know, finding that right fit for you,
right balance for you.
Yes, is very important.
You want to talk about PROs, Dawn? We only have a few minutes.
We do.
Not too big of a
music, non-exclusive PROs. Yeah, the one thing about that is, if you're gonna, as an artist or an independent, I would make sure that you.
Do you all know what PROs are? I'm assuming everybody does, but maybe not. Okay.
Performing rights societies, ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC are the big ones, and you should have your music in one of those places. Copyright, even old school copyright, is good. Not everyone does it, but it's still nice to have all your stuff copyrighted at the copyright, you know, the U.S. Office of Copyright.
Yeah.
But the PROs are also a place. I would also say have your own.
You need it registered with the PRO to go forward with the library. That's step one, right?
It is step one with a library. Also, have your own publishing company. Whether you are an LLC, you are official or whatever, even if you don't have that, register one at your PRO. Some of them charge, let's see, it was BMI used to charge $250 for a publishing. I'm not sure if they still do. ASCAP did not.
That was a one-time fee though.
One-time fee to just register a PRO. they'll ask you, or a publishing
only. Yeah.
publishing company. The reason I'm saying that, when we started Take Two Productions, some of our artists started getting placements. We were splitting the publishing with them. Take Two Productions was. They were getting all of their writers, but we were splitting the publishing. And some of those writers did not have a publishing company yet. So they had to rush and do that as we're getting something placed on One Tree Hill or whatever. They pay 9 months behind regularly. So, you know, it's not like if it gets placed, you're not going to get paid. You will get paid.
But they are doing their cue sheet, so you want the correct publishing name in the cue sheet right up front. So
right. So our artists were splitting the publishing with us on those placements, and Take Two was getting 50%, and they were getting 50% of that publishing for that placement. So
now Tonja has a question.
Yes.
Could you have more than one publishing company, or once you register with one, that's it?
No, you can have more.
You have multiple. That's okay. Okay.
Yes. In fact, yes. We
yes, in fact, yes.
Yes.
A definite yes. I work for Red One. We have many publishing companies.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll have a certain amount of songs with this one, and then we start a new one with the new label, and we'll have that new music in that one.
Okay.
Yes, you can. Do your research on that and how to do that. There's so many answers I have to that. That's why I look like a deer in headlights right now. That's a question. That's a question you might want to send me. So next time I can just email you back and give you some tips.
Okay.
Anybody else want to say anything on that?
Question.
Yes.
When you say publishing company, if you have a publisher's account, like with ASCAP or BMI or whatever, company. Is that something different, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. I'm sorry for calling it a company.
Okay.
What would you call it, Beth? A publishing
account?
I call it a publishing company.
Right.
It's just that's the way my mind works, because the publishing is,
right.
It has a name and it's a separate entity than an individual.
Contracty thing. Yes. So I think of it as a company, even though it's just a name, basically.
Right. And sometimes I don't want to speak in terms that people aren't understanding. So I'm going to go back to the basics right now. If you get something placed on a television show, this is just an example, royalties are going to be paid. 50% go to the writer, 50% go to the publisher. So that is what I'm speaking of. If you don't have a publisher, that money goes out into the abyss.
And Madonna will get it. Sadly, she will.
It's very true.
Sad, but it's
and somebody may be going after that publishing money, right? If there was other people in, whether that was
if it's a co-write, you mean?
However that song got placed, somebody in there has got to be looking for that.
Well, so
publishing end.
When Take Two would place a song, we take 50% of the publishing for that song. We rename it so that we don't take 50% when we don't place it. So we would name it something similar, re-register it, and then we get 50% of the publishing. If the artist hadn't done their done their publishing company, that's 25% of that cue that's being paid to, say, ASCAP or BMI, and it's just going to sit there because they don't know where to send it. So that goes into the general fund. And eventually it has to go out. And it doesn't go out to you and me and other people. It doesn't.
They'll split it with the artists that are registered.
The top artists.
And they have extra money.
So make sure that your money is flowing back towards you. It's all just having everything set up so that if and when you get something, your money goes flowing.
Well, once you automatically write a song, you are the publisher.
Right, but you have to, if it's placed, say it's placed in a movie, or say it's placed in a TV show, because that's
so then you have to be more formal about it.
Yeah, it has to be, because they will pay 50% of back end to the writer and 50% to the publishing company. Sometimes there's 3 writers, sometimes there's 2 publishing companies, or 3, or however many. They'll just split it up. 50% goes to the writers And that always is the writers. Congress has made it so you guys can't sell your writers. You can sell your publishing, but Congress is like a parent trying to protect you all, because some writers I know would sell their writers if they could to pay their car payment. You can't sell that ever. Your publishing you can sell, you can keep, you can do what you want with it, but you do need to register in order to get that money flowing back to yourself.
Before we're done, I have to answer a couple of questions. These are good. And Katie, thank you for posting those. California Lawyers for the Arts.org and Women in Music. Women in Music is an awesome organization. There are members who are entertainment lawyers. And then Katja asked if we get an opportunity when a contract is on, can we run that by you? Beth and I do consulting. We get paid for this. But this is one reason I'm doing free things here too. If you have questions, and in a Zoom, if you want to ask me specific questions, that's fine. We do not charge prices like a lawyer would charge. It's hourly. Pardon?
Because we're not lawyers.
No, we are not lawyers, but we have been in the business so long that we can answer all of your questions about the contract. Then we would say, we're giving you advice on this. If you really want to go forward with this, you may want to retain a lawyer. Our hourly is, you would like it. So it's not, we're advocates for artists. So we just,
it's not lawyer fees.
No, it's not lawyer fees.
We will basically go through the contract for you and point out problems, issues, things you want to negotiate, so that when you do go to an attorney, you have less questions for the attorney at $200, $300 an hour. You know, we've kind of gone through it for you to kind of narrow it down and show you just some highlights.
Right.
We have negotiated with some, not as attorneys, but we've negotiated and changed some contracts, but.
We have with some big, I probably can't say the names, Beth.
One of the big music show
One of the big music reality TV shows.
We actually that's a feather in our cap. We got them to change their contract for a songwriter. So that was.
That they wanted to be on their show. So, and we were actually both surprised that they just came back and said, yes, okay. Yes. We'll redline all of this out. So
don't take the first offer.
Right. Sometimes just having an advocate, if you've got a TV show or something or someone, you know, can really help you. We're more the advocate side. We're not the lawyers, but we can represent you in some of those places at times as Take Two Productions. So, and as I said, this is on a case-by-case basis. That's just how we have done it, and we're just on we call ourselves consultants. So I don't even have this on our website. I don't have it out there, but we've just done it in the past. So if anyone's ever interested, just email me and ask, and we can help. But as Katie posted, there are so many organizations and people that you can check in with on that as well. And I like Mark's comment that Madonna is a material girl after all.
She has some of your money, Dawn.
Meaning
stuff that's gotten lost in ASCAP.
Oh, it's very true. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a quick question on publishing.
Yes.
Is it possible to have like a song registered with BMI, but have the publishing company registered with ASCAP, or should they be the same?
No, wait. Is that possible?
They have to be the same. So
they do for that one title.
Yes. So if it basically is like the writer, if the writer is an ASCAP writer, then their share of the publishing has to be registered to an ASCAP publisher, and likewise with BMI.
If there's a BMI, if say you write a song, say you're an ASCAP writer and there's a BMI writer and you're splitting it 50-50, you would each have your publishing. The BMI writer would have their writers with BMI and their publishing with BMI, and you would have your writers and publishing with ASCAP.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's
right.
Keeps the percentages stay with wherever they go.
So you as a person, I'm sorry I hesitated there. With Take Two, we have different publishers because we have different writers where we would want to be published, if that makes sense. We want a publisher with each. So as a songwriter, yes, you can only be with the one. And that brings me to something I wanted to tell Will, because I promised him this. But Beth, we had when we got some of our writers out of ASCAP and BMI, we had some comparisons of what they were paying. And I need to go back through my emails and find those.
Oh.
So that,
Yeah.
On the songs, because we had some songs that we knew about that were an ASCAP writer and a BMI writer, and they would have a song on a TV show, and we compared which paid more, and we addressed that in the last time, and that's where we knew, get out of ASCAP if you are a songwriter. So, and I don't know the current.
Okay.
Pardon?
Get out of ASCAP, you said? Is that what you just said? Get out.
I did.
That is our opinion.
Okay.
From our
Now,
experience.
I do have to say that this was years ago, and I haven't done a comparison probably in the last 3 years. I haven't done another comparison. So these things are moving targets. I mean, it changes.
But ASCAP's view of songwriters is very different than their view of composers. They have a view of composers as special and educated and top tier. Songwriters are just...
Do you want to say why you know that?
They've told me. They told me to my face that songwriters don't go to school. They're just songwriters. They're not doing this for a living. This is not a job for them. Whereas composers, right? We argued.
We were in a meeting with the
vice president. Yeah.
Yes.
And basically said songwriters are less valuable, was the gist of what they said. And they said it very clearly, so you could understand.
This is why we're so glad we have you, because your guys' job is to really just, carry that torch for us.
I was indignant.
Yeah.
We had songwriters in the room.
And we had a recording going. Wow. We asked them if we could record the meeting. And they said, sure, yeah. And then they said that out loud. And I was like, you mean like John Lennon? Not really a professional songwriter? Yeah. Yeah. So right there, we were out the door to BMI. So.
Mark says, my buddy Josh Doyle just switched. It hasn't changed. What are you saying, Mark?
I'm sorry. I muted myself. I'm basically saying what you guys experienced whenever you switched is still going on in present day. My buddy Josh is a guy who produces a lot. He's a drummer, but he produces a lot of other people's stuff as well as produces his own stuff for Sync. And through the collaboration process and, getting placements in those collaborations, he was an ASCAP guy. And it's like every single time he's looking at all of these, he's looking at, everybody's bottom line and what they were getting and what he's getting. And it's like, okay, this is just not adding up. And so he just switched his whole, took the whole catalog, which of course they tell you not to. They don't like that either. But I mean, the proof is
in the check.
You've got the proof laid out in front of you in a spreadsheet. It's kind of undeniable.
Yeah,
when
you do the co-writes, when you see the co-writes, we've had actually some songs that were CSAC, BMI, and ASCAP. We were lucky enough to see those, to see exactly what they were paying across the board. So that made it easy to understand the bottom line of what these PROs, where they're, who they value. Yes.
Thanks everybody for all of the things. Kalia just posted her BMI guy, and I'm really glad to hear you have somebody like that that's advocating for you in there. These are very big companies as well, the PROs. So you're not always going to get the personal touch, but we know people too. And from being at ABC, I've held on to my contacts as well. And so anytime I email, even ASCAP, I have contacts there that are very kind and nice to us. Right, Beth?
Yep.
Yeah, even though we moved all of our catalog from ASCAP to BMI.
Because they don't want to say what I just said. Every once in a while, they'll take us to lunch.
Yeah. They're
but I'm
yes.
still going to be honest. I'm sorry.
Beth just told you a story, so I don't know if I can ever put this anywhere. But yeah, it's okay. I wanted you to. We're getting to the end. Beth needs to watch the Thunderbirds fly over.
Coming over my house in 10 minutes.
House. I'm gonna save the chat today. I mentioned that last week if anybody wants it. And you know what? I'm enjoying these so much that I'm gonna keep doing them weekly. How do you feel, Beth? Will you?
Yeah. Gives me something to do.
Yay.
Okay. Next week I was thinking, but I don't know if I'll do it right away because it's more on the library side again. I was thinking of having a guest who writes specifically for the ABC television library. I may go ahead and bring him in so he can tell you how that worked for him, how they ordered things from him, how his experience worked. And we can talk about other things, but if you guys want to, I love when you send the questions, or if you have topics, or Will, I almost feel like I should have you as a guest at some point, and share more of your knowledge.
That's too kind, and I would be honored.
Yes.
Okay. So, we can we're a smaller community than all of the ones that I've been in. So that's kind of nice. I not that we have to keep it small, but I think there's some positive things to that, right? Yeah. So I appreciate all of you. And does anyone else have anything they want to interject or say before we?
Just thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you guys next week then.
Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Save chat. Hey, everybody.